Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Balboa Park is bustling tonight as thousands of people celebrate the spirit of the holiday season. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It is the 47th annual December Nights Festival, and this year there's some extra excitement around the reopening of the Botanical Building after a years-long renovation. And KPBS reporter John Carroll is live at the park where he's been checking out all there is to see and do. John.
Hey Maya, you know, it is not overstating it to say this really is a grand event. It started back in 1978 as Christmas on the Prado, a modest event by comparison. It changed its name a few years back to be more inclusive, and now December Nights has grown into one of the biggest celebrations all year in San Diego. Friday morning in Balboa Park, and the place is buzzing with activity.
December Nights is a cherished community tradition for so many people. It's grown year over year.
Grown, not only in the amount of people attending, about 350,000 expected tonight and tomorrow, but also in the variety of things to do. New this year, a free Ferris wheel. SeaWorld is participating for the first time with animal presentations featuring a festive twist, and Disneyland is represented for the first time. They call what's happening here activations, basically Disney-themed backgrounds for special holiday pictures and arts and crafts for the young ones. All of that happening in this area called the Family Zone.
The programming in this particular area really is dedicated exclusively to young families and children. We also have a breastfeeding station and a diaper changing station inside the municipal gym.
And of course, all the old familiar stuff. The big Christmas tree in the Spreckles Organ Pavilion, Santa and his reindeer, and food of every kind from all corners of the globe, including from the international cottages.
Well, it's a little hectic.
Maricruz Poppy and Amelia Ruelas are getting the business side of things ready at the House of Mexico food stand.
And we're trying to do our technology piece to it, but we're getting ready.
It's my first December night event. I'm a volunteer for House of Mexico, and I'm super excited.
And as is the tradition, most of the museums and cultural institutions will be open, most with free admission. Okay, remember when I said they're expecting well north of 300,000 people this year? That, of course, means plenty of transportation and parking challenges. Fortunately, there are a lot of options. Let's go over just a few of them for you. You can take free shuttles and park at City College parking garages. That is located at 16th and B. That parking is free. There's also parking near City Hall at 3rd and B Streets. And in Little Italy at Beach and Kettner, those shuttles drop off and pick up at Laurel and 6th. There are also paid parking lots closer to the park. Ride sharing or taking MTS buses and trolleys is also encouraged. More on all that can be found at decembernights.org. So things go till 11 tonight here, tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And you know, Maya, even though there are a ton of people out here, there's such a nice feeling in the air. It is just a really lovely way to ring in the holidays in one of the most beautiful parks on the planet. Live in Balboa Park, John Carroll, KPBS News. Maya.
Oh, some great information there, and just in time for December Nights, Balboa Park's Botanical Building is back open to visitors. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas visited this morning and shows us some of the restored design features and new plants inside.
After 3 years of work and nearly $30 million spent, one of Balboa Park's icons is back. All of the redwood and most of the steel frame had to be replaced after years of wear and tear. And if it seems brighter inside than it used to, that's in part because of the new windows throughout the building.
In the 1950s, there was a major renovation where they practically removed all of the window arcades, including the doorways, and replaced it with wood lattice coming all the way down. Our job was to bring it back to the original 1915 design, so all of the window arcades came back, as well as the doorways.
While the building is very true to the original design, many of the plants are new. The city tapped a familiar face to KPBS audiences to design the garden, Nan Sturman. She says some of the larger plants were moved to a nursery off-site during the renovation. They make up about 10% of the plants here today.
The way this garden is designed, we have a sunny side on the west, we have a shady side on the east, and we have a transition zone in the center. Most of the salvage plants, which are the tropical plants that people remember, they're on the east side. The west side is all new. The east side is really green. The west side is purple and orange and red and yellow.
Sturman says it'll take some time for the building to look as lush as it used to, but she says it's a new garden for people to grow up with. On the west side, she picked plants that can survive in drier air. Some of her favorites are the 3 trees in the middle planter.
Those are going to grow to like 30 feet tall, and they're going to have all kinds of straggly, scraggly branches and be very sculptural. I hope that within my lifetime, I get to see them start to take on that structure. But I chose those thinking 100 years ahead, because this is the beginning of the garden that will be here in 100 years.
The Botanical Building is open until 7 tonight and tomorrow from noon to 6. Regular hours start on Monday. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
After some difficult dense fog this morning, we shouldn't have as much developed tonight. Hopefully it'll stay a little farther offshore, keeping us clear and cool. Temperatures falling to the mid-40s. I'll have your full forecast coming up.
Local experts are weighing in on Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to increase National Guard presence at the border. Yesterday, the governor said that he plans to increase the number of National Guard members at the border to stop illicit activity and guns. But experts our media partner KGTV spoke to say the governor needs to define their specific responsibilities.
We need to have very clear distinction that their presence at the border is not to conduct immigration. There tends to be an unaccountable and a lack of transparency in how they operate. And so what I wouldn't want to see is that level of impunity also translate to how the National Guard troops operate.
And Rios adds that the governor's announcement seems like a response to the incoming Trump administration's policies and cautioned the governor against making the state a political target. University of Southern California issued an unusual warning to its international students. Return from the holiday break before President-elect Donald Trump begins his second term. Tom Waite explains why.
On the USC campus, an air of uncertainty heading into the holiday break. International students received this letter from the university administration, urging them to return before President-elect Donald Trump is sworn in on January 20th.
I think it definitely was like a scary reality.
Pragya Bhatta and Amber Hoddle are both international students who got the warning about staying out of the country for too long. Hoddle is headed to Australia and Bhatta is going to India for the holiday break. They say the warning from the university to come back before the new administration takes office was sobering.
I think that was the first time where it actually hit me that like things are gonna change and it's gonna be different. I was just shocked. Like I didn't think it was gonna affect me at all. Like I had assumed, because I've already worked out a lot of my immigration stuff before coming here, I'd assumed that it wouldn't really change. And so the fact that I got that letter, it made me a little bit nervous. I immediately texted my parents.
The letter says it's unclear what, if any, executive orders might come down once Trump retakes the White House, but implores students to avoid any issues by coming back to the U.S. sooner rather than later. And it lays out which documents they must have in order. The warning comes in the wake of Trump's promise of immigration crackdowns and mass deportations for people who are here illegally. Immigration attorney Eric Lee says the university is doing the right thing by notifying international students.
This is new territory, And the students who have, if you are a student on an F or a J visa, you need to get back to the United States as quickly as possible. It's going to be a lot harder than students may realize to challenge legally actions that result in their being excluded physically from the territoriality of the United States.
Bata and Hoddle tell us their documents are all in order and they plan to return before Trump takes office. But they know others who are now scrambling to make sure they're back before Trump's inauguration.
Just talking to a lot of people whose families are being affected, whose personal selves are being affected. You know, I had friends who pushed their flight back a couple of weeks just to be safe, which means they're cutting down on time with their family. There's a lot of things happening that I didn't think would affect me as quickly as it would, and it's for sure very, unsettling.
Tom, wait with that report. A mother is suing the city of San Diego after a high-speed chase by police ended in the deaths of her 4- and 8-year-old sons. The car that hit them last December was speeding from police. The lawsuit claims the pursuit started over a traffic stop. SDPD data show most of their chases start over minor infractions. The lawsuit is the latest in a year-long push for reform to the department's vehicle pursuit policy. The police department and the city attorney's office say they don't comment on pending litigation. San Diego's Commission on Police Practices began reviewing K-9 policy this week after complaints of excessive force. KPBS reporter Katie Heisen says police data show large racial disparities in who is bitten. This story contains graphic violence.
Officers surrounded a Valencia Park home 6 weeks ago, responding to a claim that Marcus Evans threatened a woman with a gun. He came out hands in the air in basketball shorts, no shirt, no shoes. I have no nothing, he said, turned around to show them, sat down, hands still up. An officer fired a beanbag at his stomach. Evans collapsed.
Why you shoot me? Marcus, you need to comply with my command. Why you shoot me? Try and run, you will be hit by police cars.
He sat up, hands up. They shot another beanbag, injuring his shin, then released a canine.
Hey, stop!
The dog didn't bite. They shot another beanbag. It hit near his groin and released another canine. The dog latched onto his arm, wrenching it back and forth. Evans fell on his back. The dog continued for half a minute before officers got it to release. They never found a gun or booked Evans into jail. According to his lawyer, Dante Pride, he had just joined a construction union. Weeks after the arrest, he still couldn't work or walk, had trouble opening and closing his left hand. A bruised rib made it hard to breathe. Pride says Evans plans to sue.
We're going to ask that the court order SDPD not to allow their dogs to be released on someone on the ground.
Community advocate Tasha Williamson filed excessive force complaints about Evans' arrest with the police, the FBI, and the U.S. Department of Justice.
We are asking Chief Wall to protect us.
San Diego's K-9 unit is big, a few dozen dogs, triple that of a similar-sized city. The unit started in the 80s after a string of suspect and officer deaths. K-9s are less lethal than guns. They're meant to find missing people and evidence and de-escalate dangerous situations. This year, SDPD K-9s have bitten more than 30 people. SDPD data show Black people are 9 times likelier to be bit by K-9s than white people. Chief Scott Wall says they're reviewing Evans' arrest. He says K-9s bite less than 2% of times they're brought out. And the racial disparities?
Our bites are not based off of somebody's color of their skin. Our bites are based off of a person's actions.
A recent change in state law required the department to release 2021 body cam footage of an SDPD sergeant saying a K-9, quote, only likes dark meat.
It only likes dark meat.
He's still on the force. So is Alan Di Martin. Sources say his K-9 bit Evans. He has yet to confirm. In 2018, he was disciplined for excessive force on someone who spoke Spanish after he told them to speak English. He was transferred to another division, promoted, hired to the K-9 unit, and sent back to the majority Black and Latino neighborhood of Valencia Park.
Except this time with a dog.
Officer John Cochran has been with SDPD for 3 decades. He filed a complaint about Evans' arrest.
Just because you have a call involving a gun don't mean you get to use any force that you want to do.
He points to something called the use of force matrix, how SDPD officers should respond to different situations, including passive resistance.
Refusal to comply with verbal commands and does not convey a threat of physical resistance to an officer or another person, which that's what I believe Marcus Evans was displaying.
For passive resistance, officers should use things like batons and pressure points, not beanbag guns, not canines. He says canines are also used on people suspected of nonviolent, low-level offenses. Christy Lopez says that's a national pattern. She investigated canine units across the country for the U.S. Department of Justice and found they consistently, disproportionately bite Black people.
These are dogs that are bred because of how strong and destructive their bite is. It has been compared to a shark bite, even worse than a shark bite. People have had their scalps ripped off. They have been killed.
The American Civil Liberties Union found canines have severely injured or killed hundreds of Californians. Nearly half showed signs of mental health disability.
When you use an animal to attack a person, you are, to some extent, treating that person like prey.
SDPD canines have bit an unarmed, naked man, stayed latched onto someone already handcuffed, allegedly jumped a fence and attacked a mother with her 5-year-old.
You're never going to be able to ensure that that dog isn't going to attack the wrong person or not let go when they're supposed to, and the person has already surrendered. And we would never let an officer use a gun, for example, that would just randomly shoot every once in a while. Not very often, but every once in a while.
Recent California bills tried to limit the use of canines. Police campaigned against them. None of the bills succeeded. In 2020, Salt Lake City suspended the use of canines for apprehension. Researchers found no negative effect on officer or suspect safety. Chief Wall says the review of Evans' arrest will likely take months. Katie Hyson, KPBS News.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the NewsHour, Russian interference in a NATO member's presidential election sends shockwaves through Europe. That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Local ballot measures that fund children's programs passed in several counties in California. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne says the initiatives raise hopes for San Diego's own measure currently in the works.
The county of Pomona and cities of Sonoma and Santa Cruz succeeded in passing ballot measures that fund childcare and youth programs. Some of the measures create a dedicated bucket of funding, while others tax sugary drinks, like sodas, to pay for the programs.
I think there is a mix of good and bad news in California for coming out of the election. But when it comes to investments in kids, I think there is more good than bad.
Dave Metz is the president of FM3 Research, who conducted a statewide poll after the election.
And today, most people think their kids will be less well off than they are. Again, that creates a sense of economic anxiety. And you'll note, by the way, at the bottom of the slide that this holds true regardless of how much money you're making. Even the most affluent households feel the same way.
He says the research shows that a top concern of voters was the future of California's youngest residents.
So it creates some economic anxiety, but it also puts people in a position where they can say, kids have it tough these days. We need to do everything we can to get them started in life in the best position they can possibly be.
As evidence, the local measures that passed across the state. They fund childcare, mental health services, parks, and youth and recreational programs. San Diego could have seen an expansion in funding with measures E and G, but they failed.
Clearly, there's broad support for children and youth, and had, some of those efforts, meaningfully included, like a child and youth component or focus, I think they would have stood to a much better chance of passing.
Erin Hogaboom is with San Diego for Every Child. It is just one of the many organizations that make up the Children First Collective. They are working together to tackle the challenges of having affordable childcare and paying providers fairly. And that work includes a future ballot measure to fund local programs.
I mean, the commitment is definitely there. The need is there. The voter support is there. So it's just a matter of timing and fundraising and really narrowing in on what we want and how to get there.
Courtney Baltiski with the YMCA of San Diego County says the collective is beginning to work on the initiative and fundraising. They are still working on deciding when the measure gets introduced to voters and their ballots. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Students at Rosa Parks Elementary School got a big surprise today, courtesy of SDG&E and the San Diego Padres. 200 second and third graders thought that they were having an assembly to reward them for essays that they wrote. What they didn't know was that there would be a special guest, and that was Padres pitcher Joe Musgrove. And he didn't come empty-handed, by the way. He rolled into the auditorium with brand new bikes for all of them.
I wanted a bike.
You did want a bike for Christmas.
Yeah.
We got a bike.
Yeah.
We got a Christmas bike, right?
Yeah.
Reading some of the essays and, same things I did and, in the same city, and the opportunities may not seem real to kids at the time, but this is where it all starts,
Each student wrote an essay about what they wanted to be when they grew up and why. Organizers say the event not only gives kids an extra gift under the tree, but also the motivation to dream big.
We've really come around to more offshore flow after some challenges out to start about for the morning hours. Of course, we did have some fog earlier in the day. Don't think that will come back onshore as much as we head through tonight because that offshore flow does continue until tomorrow. Then the low clouds, the fog, does return for us as we go through Sunday, even Monday morning, before Santa Ana winds kick in next week. So that'll be our big story as we get into next week. Until then, tonight gets pretty chilly out. 45 the low here in San Diego. Head to Oceanside, we're at 39. Ramona coming in at 38 and Mount Laguna coming in at 35 for the low. As we head into tomorrow, sunshine is pretty much with us in full force. Again, offshore flow here, so it's going to be a bright day for so many locations. Chula Vista, 75 for you, but again in the city, 74. And as you head towards Borrego Springs, we're at 78 for the afternoon. Where do we go as we head into Sunday? Well, we still have a lot of dry weather in place, but because storm system's kind of weakening off towards east, we'll see more of that onshore flow kick in for us. So it's kind of our usual December pattern as we close out the weekend. Taking a look at the upcoming days, you can see with that offshore flow, we are warm for tomorrow. Yet again, 75 for the high. Then we start to cool off a little bit as that onshore flow kicks in. Returning then to the Santa Ana winds Tuesday and Wednesday puts us back into the 70s. As we transition through most of our locations here for the next couple of days, you can see we start off Saturday pretty warm for our inland communities. If you're west of the mountains, that's going to be your warm day. And then Sunday, Monday trails off a little bit for us as we hold on to the 70s, starting to rise again towards the middle of next week with more offshore flow. Mountain communities holding on to the 50s throughout. Really no big variations here in the upcoming days as we keep things fairly dry and bright. No signs of moisture, unfortunately. I know we need it. There will be a more active pattern venturing into the northwest for the upcoming week, but we should miss out on it, keeping us largely dry through the upcoming days. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constancer.
Kyle Mooney attended Scripps Ranch High School, where improv classes eventually led him to Saturday Night Live. KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando spoke to Mooney about his directorial debut, Y2K, which hits theaters today.
As a teenager, San Diego native Kyle Mooney was disappointed that the Y2K bug was a bust.
For those of us who lived it, it was just a really fascinating thing. It just nothing. It was just like a full letdown.
But then he thought, what if?
Y2K is real! Truly within a week, we had all of the building blocks of what ended up on screen.
Someone's on the net?
So the thought of turning this like full-on nothing in reality into this like disaster, end of the world kind of trek across town to try to survive was, I don't know, it just felt like a fun way to approach it.
Y2K. The result is Y2K, an end-of-the-world teen comedy in which computers turn on humanity.
Bye-bye, human race.
We're talking global computer apocalypse. But how do you depict the apocalypse on an indie budget?
The challenge was really just, I think, the scale. It's like we wanted to make a movie like a movie we would have seen in the cinema in 1998 or 99 or 2000 or whatever. And, you're working with a limited budget. So it's how are you going to make this happen and make it look decent?
You can start by employing the New Zealand-based Weta Workshop to do your practical effects.
truly the best in the game, and everything they sent us was so already perfect when it got to us. But it was just cool, like, oh, let's throw in this machine from 1998. Let's throw in this old vacuum cleaner from 1989. I think it was just a lot of fun, sort of the mishmash and, like, I don't know, the creativity of, like, the imagination we got to sort of roll with of, like, oh, this would be a really weird, wild thing to happen. Let's kind of go off with it.
And a challenge to turn these sentient machines into suits that can be worn and operated by a person.
So there's all these like practical considerations, like the weight distribution and like how they can move when they're inside of it, the amount of time they can be inside of it, how long it takes to put on. There's a lot of practical elements. The screens work, you know, with like real glow so that the actors have something to play off of.
But the filmmakers also wanted the story to have genuine emotion.
No one's actual childhood, high school experience is filled with this type of stuff, but that is the most emotional time in people's lives, you know, when you're that age and things are just changing. And so I guess we just wanted to make something that, even though there's all this insane stuff happening, it feels like there is this heightened emotionality that I feel like is very true to being that age.
From the very beginning, like, our note to our actors and everyone involved was like, let's play this as honestly and as grounded as possible, even though some crazy shit is happening.
Y2K marks a promising directorial debut for the Scripps Ranch High alum. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Tripolsi. I hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.